I took the top 5 things that I think people attack you on, in my opinion, misquote you on, and I thought maybe we could take 5 minutes for each one, 5 or 6 minutes for each one, and that way, each time someone says, well, Sam Harris wants to nuke the Middle East, or Sam Harris wants to racially profile Muslims, or whatever it is, you or I or anyone that's clear-minded can just send a link and say, here it is in 5 minutes. You don't have to read a book, you don't have to watch a 3-hour interview, here it is. I think the number one thing that people say about you is that when you say Islam, you mean all Muslims.
Right.
So take it away.
Yeah, so the claim is that I generalize about Muslims, and this is incredibly ironic because half the time in that Bill Maher clip was spent where I was talking about statistics and poll results and percentages, and a certain percentage is jihadist, and then there's a wider circle of Islamists, and then there's a wider circle of conservatives. And so I never generalize about the Muslim world. And insofar as we have good data on the numbers of people who subscribe to various beliefs, then I'm always looking at those data. And so, and everything I say about the problem of Islam and Islamism takes as its area of concern first and foremost the people living in the Muslim world who are living under the shadow of, if not the boot of theocracy. So, women and gays and freethinkers and public intellectuals and atheists, people who email me saying they're afraid their mother and father will kill them if they knew they were an atheist, for instance. And there's nobody who I celebrate more than Muslim apostates and true reformist Muslims, like my co-author on this new book, Maajid Nawaz, who have taken just heroic risks to say critical things about the faith in a context where it's much more dangerous to do so than the context in where you and I live. And I mean, so if I were a Muslim in Pakistan saying half of what I'm saying on this show, I would have a life expectancy of about 5 hours.
Right.
And that is a political and human rights reality that every liberal who's using this term Islamophobia is disregarding, not at their peril, at the peril of all the people who are not being helped by Westerners who could help, and non-Muslims who could help. And what non-Muslims can do is help in whatever way possible to make criticism of theocracy in the Muslim world safe to do. So yeah, no, I don't generalize, and I think, of course, there are millions and millions of Muslims who do not take the barbaric passages in the Quran and the Hadith seriously, and who are not wanting to kill apostates and don't want to throw gays from rooftops, and those are not the people I'm talking about. I mean, or if I'm ever talking about them in my criticism of religion, I'm talking about them in the same spirit that I talk about, Reform Jews or non-doctrinaire Christians who are not a real threat to anybody, but who may be bending public policy around in ways we don't like.
Sure.
The problem with many of those Muslims is they don't want their religion criticized at all, and they don't want any link between its core tenets around jihad and paradise and martyrdom, spelled out with, in terms of the way it's generating the kinds of violence and intolerance we're seeing in the world today. So, insofar, if you're going to defend your religion by saying Islam is a religion of peace and the Islamic State has nothing to do with Islam, you're being intellectually dishonest, and that kind of denial of obvious realities now is, I think, irresponsible and dangerous.
Yeah.
Just to close the door to notions of racism and bigotry against Muslims as people. I mean, I think the apostates, the intellectuals, the women, the gays of the Muslim world are the most important people in the world right now. If we could give green cards to every real secularist in the Muslim world, I think they should just get to the front of the line. I mean, these are the people who need to be empowered, and so that's. I mean, the irony is that they, if they could leave the Muslim world, the Muslim world needs them, right? So I mean, the best thing to do would be to empower them in the Muslim world. But
right.
I mean, life for these people is in countries like Pakistan and we have Bangladeshi bloggers being murdered, in public by machete-wielding maniacs, and nothing happens, right? Everything I say about Islam is a confession of solidarity with these people, and so how you get racism out of that or bigotry against Muslims as people, you're a better geometer than I.